Okay, we're live. Good evening. I'm attorney Vince Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. And I'm joined this evening by my co-host, Miss G, Georgette Truan. Miss G, how are you today?
Good, thank you.
So last night we talked about at the end of the show doing, a question and answer session. And I'm just thinking about it. It's Friday evening. I wonder who's watching us at 7 p.m. in the evening, California time. It's 10 o'clock on the East Coast. So I don't know if people will be watching this evening, although I'm not watching the board and more people are lining on. So for you folks that are lining on, tonight is a show devoted to answering your questions. So post your questions in the comment section on whatever social media page you're watching on, and we'll try to answer your questions this evening. Miss G, before we get questions and comments, anything you want to share with the audience tonight?
Yeah, um, I wanted to share. Um, Hold on a second. So, I just wanted to kind of inform everyone that $29 billion industry is CPS. I mean, uh, DCFS, CPS entities. I just want you guys to know the ICE budget, the ones that control the borders, they only make $6 billion a year. CPS is $29 billion a year. And 84% of the parents are innocent in the cases. There's only 16% that are drug related cases, but 84% is actual innocent cases. Innocent parents are involved with the Department of Child Services. Um, and also, I want to add that CPS, the Child Protective Services Legal Aid video educational series for parents, is basically what we do here is to bring awareness of CPS and the corruption that they partake in every parent's case, actually, and also to let you guys know that they do this for the federal government, from the federal, for the federal benefits. And actually, judges, CPS judges, train the social workers how to complete the paperwork to get the funding coming to them from the federal government. And it is Title IV funding. And that's why there is emphasis for judges to find you guilty in the first hearing. It's because Title IV funding cannot kick in until the judge makes a ruling at the first hearing that the child is in need of protection and services from the parent. So again, Title IV funding.
You
We
know,
put emphasis on that.
Miss G, I'm kind of surprised. Where'd you pick up that information?
I did my research.
Huh? Right on, right on.
And
Uh,
also, I know you're going to read something right now from somebody that wrote a comment, but I also want to add that CPS court is like a kangaroo system, as we all know it. 500,000 per year kids are removed from families. 500,000 kids a year are removed from families. So keep that in mind. So out of 40,000 children that have been taken, only 357 went to trial. Only 357 cases went to trial. No proof of parents harming the children, and CPS puts parents in a helpless position, and they usually target the parents who don't know their rights, who can't afford an attorney, and they just target us. That's all they do is target, target, target. But remember, the judges are in on it. They're training the social workers how to complete the documents to make sure that they get the funding from the federal government. So Title IV, they're very they put emphasis on that. And that's why when you go to your first hearing, you're found guilty. That's Just wanted to share that with people.
Okay, Carol Rogers says, what is particularly case do with in custody case?
What particular case do with in? Honey, that doesn't make any sense, Carol.
Okay, and we
Because I
have,
told you yesterday to write complete questions in one time, just a complete question. Oh, dear Jesus.
okay, here's Barbara Bernard. I happen to know Barbara's from up north. If CPS knows that you reported them to the grand jury and the FBI, is it witness tampering if CPS sends the kid's lawyer to ask you what proof you have against CPS? Barbara, the answer to that question is, in my opinion, yes. If you have evidence that CPS sent that lawyer to ask you questions for, their benefit or for their to assist them themselves, yeah, that could be considered witness tampering. And if you have evidence of that, I'm sure that you and your lawyer will submit that to the grand jury because that needs to be reported. Okay, Michelle Porter says the police are in on it too. Nancy Schaefer from Georgia was investigating this in Georgia before she died and speaking out. Have you ever seen that video about Nancy Schaefer on YouTube? She was a state senator from
I've
Georgia.
been mentioning Nancy Schaefer for the whole entire time I've been doing the shows.
So there's a rumor or a conspiracy theory that she was killed because
Hmm.
she was investigating CPS at the
Hmm.
state level
It's
and
not a theory, it's reality.
had been speaking out strongly against CPS and what
Hmm.
they were doing. And then,
Hmm.
for whatever reason, she ends up dead. And there's a theory that it was related to her attacks on CPS.
Hmm.
All right. By the way, if anybody wants to see that video or one of the videos where she spoke, just go on YouTube. Go on YouTube and put in the search bar Nancy Schaefer, Schaefer.
And
When you see
actually,
the
by the
when
way,
you see
Nancy, oh,
when you see the video, it gives you pause to think about what in the world's going on here. Go ahead, Miss G.
Nancy Schaefer also exposed the Clintons, and she lost her life for it. She was getting death threats, and because she was going to write a book exposing the government, she lost her seat in the Senate, the Georgia Senate, and she didn't stop. She kept exposing, and she started getting death threats. And then her life was gone, her and her husband. And then they tried to put everything under the rug and, you know, claims that her husband killed her, which is bullshit. But that's just how our government is.
All right, so Aaron Blythe, I need some advice. I'm in California. Can you help me out? Well, Aaron, I'm a licensed attorney in California, so post your question. Okay, Nicole Miles, can an investigator come from another county to investigate your case? Now, that's a very
Mhm.
interesting question. Here in California, social workers are by county. All right, they get their authority from the county they work in. So a social worker in Los Angeles County doesn't have any power in, say, Orange County or Sacramento County. Now, the problem becomes is that in some states, like for example, Oregon, they don't do it county by county. They do it statewide. So theoretically, that investigator, if it is from one of those statewide states, I would say that they could go to any county and investigate your case.
Mhm.
So, Nicole, I would have to know what type of state you're referring to. Ariel sends Miss G love. Barbara says, I can't afford a lawyer. I'm fighting them on my own. This is just another tactic of the county to silence me. Barbara, I would have to agree with you. Miss G, do you have any comments?
For Barbara,
Yeah.
Barbara, I can't remember what state her case is in, actually.
She's in California. She's
Oh, she
definitely in
is.
California. Yeah, I've
Um,
talked to her many times, and we text occasionally. Haven't heard from you, Barbara, lately.
I think Barbara has my text message as well.
Yeah,
My
she's
contact.
she she's way in Northern California.
Yeah, I think yeah, I don't know what's going on with Barbara right now in her case. I don't know, but I would like to
Candace
know.
Har- Candace Harper says Nancy Shaver is the greatest of all time.
That's right. She is.
Michelle Porter says, "Why would her husband kill himself?" Well, that's a very good question.
He
You know,
didn't
one of
kill
the
himself.
well,
Somebody killed them both.
that's what the report is, or they're trying to make it seem that
They're
way.
trying to make it seem like that, but it's not the case.
Michelle Porter says, "I want to see those notes she left her kids."
Right. She was actually in the process of finishing a book.
Aaron says, "What are the rules and regulations of CPS when a person has lost their child and they would like to reunify?" Well, that's a big question, Aaron. Um, each state. Let's talk about California. Those rights and explanations are in the Welfare and Institutions Code in California, and in your state, Aaron. If you're not in California, they call it something else. Previously, one of our co-hosts, Cassandra, has posted on prior shows a link that will take you from, say, the California law to the similar law in each state. And I forget what the link is. You'll have to see one of the other shows. But yeah, you can find out where the rules and regulations are. And Aaron, in every state, because it's such an important civil right, you have the right to try to get your child back. You have the right to challenge anything the social worker says about you, and you have the right to reunify with your child. There are some exceptions to the reunification um, laws. In California, if you commit such a heinous crime, the judge may have the discretion to not offer you family reunification services.
What's an example of a heinous crime other than they themselves commit heinous crimes? What is an example of a heinous crime?
Raping and murdering a 4-year-old girl.
So how come a couple of cases last year
Well, you
of
can't ask
thousands?
me how come. Can't ask me how come because I
Okay,
don't
no,
make
no,
the
no.
law.
Okay, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that's the rules, right? That's the rules in court. But
No,
yet
you asked me a question
but
to give
they
you an
do give.
example.
I'm
To give you an
giving.
example.
Okay, well, I'm making a statement right now. Okay, so
Oh,
basically,
pardon me,
so
everyone. Miss G
basically,
is making a statement. Let me mute myself.
please do, please. So they're saying that heinous crime, but yet they commit heinous crime each day, each minute of the day. When they place children with sex offenders, take them from a good home, but place them with sex offenders. So that's not a heinous crime, but yet they're taking children from good families and lying against the families, lying against mothers, and saying that the mother does this and that, which is bullshit lies. And then they say, oh, but except for heinous crimes. That makes absolutely no sense. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself, Davis. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
whatever.
Michelle Porter says there were notes left. No, she's talking about Nancy Schaefer. I want
Mhm.
to see those notes. Has anyone talked to the kids? Michelle, I can't answer that question.
They're keeping everybody silent. She knows
Makes
too much. She knew too much.
makes sense. Nicole Miles says I had investigator come from Greenville to Hinds County. So, Nicole, do you live in a state where it's county by county, or it's a statewide organization? It probably makes a difference. Let's see. Here we have Nicole. Oh, Miles says, I'm in Mississippi. Nicole, I don't know if Mississippi is a state run or a county run CPS. Michelle says, "Ha! They tried to hold me in contempt of court for facial expressions in Georgia."
Hmm. Yep.
Um, I'm laughing because I've never heard of that one in 36 years, getting held in contempt for facial expressions. Now, I can understand if you said something, out loud or, cursed the judge or something. Yeah, you might get held in contempt. But facial expressions, that's a new one.
They actually do that in LA County. What do you
I've
mean
n-
it's new?
I've never heard of that.
No, it happens a lot in
And,
LA County, Monterey Park Courthouse. It happens a lot.
to
Facial
be held in
expression.
to be held in contempt in California, there has to be a separate proceeding, and they have to be able to um, prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you've done something, that you violated some law or court order. And in my opinion, making facial expressions might be constitutionally protected speech. So I don't know what law that you would break.
I don't know why you even say something like that when you know that they don't even follow the laws.
Oh,
What are you
they
talking
they
about?
I would disagree with you there, but let me tell you this. This might be of interest to people.
Well, that's my facial expression. That
That
that's the facial expression right there. So
It
I'll
says
be
it
held in
all.
contempt.
It says it all. You know, many years ago, I was in a courtroom in LA County, as a matter of fact, and I was before a judicial officer. I think the judicial officer was a commissioner, and he wanted to hold me in contempt of court because I was arguing, and I don't know. He must have not liked what I said. I must have said something after he said something like, "Don't say another word," and I kept going. It was many years ago, but I remember when he said, I want to hold you in contempt," and I said, because this was the law at the time, think that it still is. I said something like, "Well, I want to," I'm much younger, by the way. I said, "Well, I want a real judge, and I want a jury trial." And at that point, this judicial officer just stood up and walked off the bench. And I called a friend of mine who's, a very good attorney, and I said, "Hey, you may need to get down to court because, so and so may be holding me in contempt." And as it turned out, when I asked for the jury trial, I think they have to send the case down to the criminal court or down to the main courthouse. And I always had the feeling, although nobody ever said this, that they weren't going to do that. It was too much paperwork, too much trouble. Um, Ariel Hopkins, and hello to you, Mr. Davis. We didn't forget you. Thank you, Ariel. Appreciate it. I'm just the co-star to Miss G. And then here he says, Candace Harper, watching us on Facebook, kind of like how Epstein killed himself.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
Correct. Cadence. Correct.
But here the weird thing is that we all think that, and have it. We feel that we know that that's the truth, but yet nobody has been prosecuted for this man's murder.
Because there's government officials that will fall. There's government officials that will be exposed. So who controls the country? The government, not the people. We just pay for them to sit on the fucking bench and to make rules and buy $15,000 refrigerator, right? And live a luxury life. They're not for us, they're for themselves. So yes, they're being protected by themselves. They protect themselves, and yes, they will make excuses and hide everything under the rug.
Okay, so Mimi Lyon says someone killed them both. I think you're referring to Nancy Schaefer and her husband. Private says 19F June Ops. Not sure what that means. Do you know, Miss G?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
I'm sure it has something to do with Epstein.
Oh, I see. Nicole Miles. I've been fighting for my kids for 4 years. That's a
Nicole, what
long.
county is this in, your case, or
What county and state? Oh, here's Nicole again. I've taken drug tests. I've had psychiatric evaluations. I've even have asked them to help me with housing, and they won't refer me nowhere.
Mhm.
Nicole, you know, maybe you should give us a call and maybe we can, talk to you if you're in California
Mhm.
about what some of the things that you can do. 4 years is an awful long time.
Just email me, Nicole, at, can you put my email address correctly this time, please?
Is it GAT?
Yes, I can't believe you're asking me that. I only email you 100 times a day.
Yeah, but I don't read them.
Of course not. That's why, yeah, I don't get any reply back. That explains it. Thank you for making that nationwide, so I can use that against you.
All right. Barbara, here's Barbara again. I can prove that the county director of HHS covered up child abuse by the foster mother and forced children to stay in that foster house for about 6 months after DSS, and that's the state organization, said it was unsafe. Barbara, if you have information like that and proof like that,
Mhm.
you should be talking to the California Attorney General or the US Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division.
That's right, Barbara. Do it.
Okay, Candace says, Miss G. Hart, have you had a chance to scroll through those groups?
Yes, I
N-
had. I have.
Okay. What groups is she talking about?
Um,
Like CPS groups or something?
yeah, it's a CPS groups. Yeah.
Yeah. Michelle Porter says, what jurisdiction do these courts hold over your family? How would we best make that argument in court? Well, the problem is, Michelle, that the law in California and probably every state gives social workers the right to investigate and file cases against you and detain your children if they believe that there is an emergency or they have a court order, if they believe that you committed some type of abuse or are a risk to commit some type of abuse. Um, so that's the jurisdiction. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's the law. It's the law that your state legislature has passed, and it supposedly complies with the federal regulations from the Department of Health and Human Services. How would we best make that argument in court? Well, there isn't an argument about that. One of the best arguments you can make in court, at least in California, is that the social worker hasn't given you reasonable services to eliminate the need for detaining your child. And that's just at the first hearing. Um, and that argument has been getting a lot of love from judges. I think in the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, I was at a detention hearing. Seems like no, it's been longer than that because it was before COVID. Couple of years, 3, 4 years ago, I was in a LA County court, and, I didn't even make that argument because I didn't think it was a good argument. But the judge released the child back to me, citing himself that the department didn't fulfill that prong of the test to detain your child. They were highly upset about it. Yes.
I need for the people that didn't hear my what I shared earlier, I need to share this again, okay? Title IV funding is why there's emphasis for the judge to find you guilty in the first hearing. First hearing. You guys need to lawyer up before you get to your first hearing. Please, I'm begging you. It's because Title IV funding cannot kick in until the judge makes a ruling at that first hearing that the child is in need of protection and services. So basically, we the people need to understand what motivates these corrupt kangaroo pieces of shit courts is that CPS agencies and the state, the function of the judge is not to protect the kids. Remember this, the function is to make money from removal of a child, and it starts in the very first hearing. Judges are training caseworkers how to complete paperwork so the Title IV funding can kick in right away. 16% are actually abused out of foster, actually abused kids out of 100 kids. So only 6% are only abused out of 100% of kids they take, from families. And
Miss G,
all, wait, let me finish. And all the accusations are abuse and neglect. Anything that can be abuse and neglect could also fall in the following. You didn't take your child to school because your child was sick. You took your child to the hospital because your child had a fever. All that they put down that is abuse and neglect. So I want you guys to be mindful. The very first hearing, you need to lawyer up. Do not depend on the court appointed attorneys, because those court appointed attorneys make money from the state. They don't get paid by you, but free sounds great. Free sounds great. Free sounds great. It's great, but not when it comes to the price of your children. So I get mad because you guys don't understand, some of you guys at least, don't understand the corruption inside the system just to gain Title IV funding from the federal government. Like I mentioned earlier, that's $92 billion a year that CPS hungers for.
You know, what would be helpful, Ms. G, is that when you state some of these statistics, you give us a citation of where we can, look it up and who's doing that study or presenting those, you know, um, those arguments or those facts.
I'll be happy to share it next time.
Okay. Deanna W., what are the best things to do or say and have presented at the time of the custody decision hearing? Deanna, you know, that's a tricky question because, first of all, there is no such thing in California called the custody decision hearing. As a matter of fact, that term of art is with respect to family law, child custody and visitation cases. And this is not a family law show, although we're going to be doing a family law show and divorce show. This is a show about CPS. So there's real no custody hearing. There is a detention hearing about getting your child back in your custody. There's a jurisdictional and a dispositional hearing about getting the child back in your custody. And then there's 6-month review hearings about getting the child back in your custody. So, and each one of those hearings is governed by a separate law or statute, and they're all different.
Mhm.
The legal tests are different and the burdens of proof a lot of times are different, and those are important factors you have to consider. So, Deanna, to give you better information, you're going to have to be a little bit more specific about what type of hearing you're talking about. Okay, CPS. Barbara says CPS took 2.5 years to ask about my niece's native heritage, a violation of ICWA.
Mhm.
You know, I used to think that a lot of courts had been schooled through appellate decisions about the importance of ICWA, and it seems I get the feeling sometimes that that ICWA's kind of I don't want to say ignored, but it's not important as it was. I'll give you an example. Not too long ago, I appeared for a parent at a selection and implementation hearing. It was the hearing to terminate her rights. And for whatever reason, I won't go into the details, the case had to be continued. Now, I'm new to the case, and the judge made the order that CPS had to finish their ICWA investigations or their ICWA notice, which is kind of astounding to me because if there is a possible ICWA issue in California, you can't go past the disposition hearing. But I think what a lot of people are doing or thinking is, oh, if we've screwed up ICWA in the front of the case, and somebody realizes it at the back of the case, we'll just give notice then and cross our fingers and hopefully the tribe won't come forward. Which is, in my opinion, my humble opinion, not how the law was intended to be. Nicole says, exactly what they have done to me. Michelle Porter says, what are your thoughts on this being connected to Epstein? If CPS is a pipeline for human trafficking, is there a connection to his case officially? I don't think so, but what do you think, Ms. G?
No, I don't.
Okay. Nicole
Oh,
says,
wait. No. I take that back. There was, yes. It's connected to Epstein only because the girls he was using, the underage girls he was using are from CPS. They're that they were awarded to the state.
really? I
Mhm.
never heard that before.
Yeah, they
Huh.
were young girls, like under the age.
Some of them were, yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, so yes, it does have some relation to that. But I am going to send Mr. Davis something in the group text to share with everybody, and it has a link as well. Um, so, Mr. Davis, if you could, please.
Okay. I'm just going to copy and paste it, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm getting a lot of my information from this website as well,
Okay.
too, guys.
Okay. So she's provided the
You did it in a
oh,
private chat again.
where's
Welcome to my
where's
world.
where's Grace when you need her?
I
You notice that she's like, she's like signing off after we go on now.
know. I know.
Okay. So I just posted that private comment from
Mhm.
Miss G. I put it out there for everyone to see. Okay.
It increases every year, you guys. The children, the amount of children that they remove, it increases every year. And I kid you not. Now it's on. I also want to tell you this. Um, it's a show that I was watching. It's called. Hold on. Here's the name of the show. Is called David Knight Show, the David Knight Show, and he gets as passionate as I do about Child Protective Services. He gets pissed, like his face turns red when he gets angry, talking about Child Protective Services because the government is so worried about you know um, uh, climate change than they are about stealing children from their families. They're so concerned about that. They're so concerned about the borders, but yet they're not putting emphasis on the children taken from the American people. So that really blows my mind. Blows my mind. They did actually a study, real quick. A lot of the Japanese Asian families in Asia, the ones who are not corrupted in America, that is, so their children are highly intelligent. Why? Because even if the mother or the father discipline a child taking their phone or whatever, they still have the right to parent that child, right? In Asia, the kids are intelligent because they don't steal them from their families. The study shows that even if a mother or a father spanks a child, that the child will still rather stay with the family than actually be removed into another home that they don't know anything about. Believe it or not, these kids are not going to go to jail when they're older. They're not going to get in trouble when they're older. The ones who actually are in jail, 85% of them are previous foster home children. Currently, the ones in jail because they retaliate, they rebel, they start doing drugs, they start prostituting, they start literally destroying themselves because they're not being heard when they were children, and everybody dismissed them and everybody wanted to keep them on the hush hush, meaning that child cannot be themselves. They cannot speak the truth because they're told not to speak the truth, not to speak their truth. And you can't do that to a child. You have to let the child be. You have to let the child speak. When I used to ask a lot of questions to my mom and dad, they never told me to shut up. They would answer my questions because they knew my brain was developing. But now it's like you're keeping the children silent because you don't want to be exposed. The only time you need silence is when you don't want to be exposed. So just keep that in mind.
Deanna W says, I'm getting weekend visits overnight and extended stay for holidays. That's great. There's an argument in California that if you're getting that, the children should be returned to you because, by definition, if you're getting unmonitored overnight visits, you're not a risk to the child. And that's the only way that CPS can keep the kids away from you. A lot of places in California, probably across the country, they have something, called the step up. They want to gradually return to the child to the family, and it's been held in California that that's not proper. It might be proper in a family law divorce case, right? That some people get a step up visitation plan, But it's not the law in CPS. In CPS cases, either you're a risk to the child or you're not. And if they're letting you have unmonitored visits, child should be returned. But yet, and still, I see a lot of people asking for or ordering step up plans and visitation. And if you object to it, I remember not too long ago, maybe this has been a while, but I objected to it in a case, and everyone kind of laughed at me. You know, in other words, like, what are you doing talking about the law? All right. Eric Santos says, Miss G, your facial expressions priceless. Miss Harper says, of course not. Why would they prosecute themselves?
And I'm talking about family court and CPS court, you guys. There's corruption everywhere in the government.
Nicole, you're in Mississippi. I don't know if it's a county, state, or a state where the state authorized. Vincent, I love you, but it's cadence. Okay, Miss Harper, cadence. I apologize.
We've been apologizing every day, all day today.
I'm sorry?
Nothing.
Chris is it Tabler? I don't know if my phone's working, but why do you think they dismissed the case? Do you know, Chris?
No.
Okay. Chris, I can't tell you. I don't know. I need to know more.
Guys, when you write a question, please make sense. We can't read your mind.
Deanna W., regarding homing children back into some home where they were taken from, does CPS have assistance program department for mothers getting their children back? They're supposed to. It's called Family Maintenance Services. They're given millions of dollars by the federal government to help mothers get their children back and provide services. People use these terms and they don't really think about what they really mean.
Mm-hmm.
FR services is when the child is out of your care. But it means that the social worker is supposed to be giving you family reunification services to get your child back. Okay? FM, family maintenance service, means the child is with you. But by law, they are supposed to be giving you services to keep the child in your home. Now, I can tell you in most of my cases where there's FM or family maintenance services, they're just on their own. They're not getting anything. Cost money.
Exactly. But doesn't it cost money to put the children in foster home? I mean, they still pay, but I guess the money comes from the parents paying child support, right?
No.
But it costs money to put the children in foster home.
Everything costs money.
Right. So why?
Federal government's paying for everything.
Wow. Shouldn't the federal government be pissed off at CPS? Shouldn't they investigate CPS at all times? Shouldn't there be some kind of accountability for CPS? Shouldn't there be somebody in the federal government that's so pissed off that they will make a change for us people?
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Who is
Chris Squeaky wheel gets the grease. You never heard that term before? That saying before?
No.
Those who complain get money. If you're quiet and you don't complain, you don't get nothing. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Chris Tabler, did they covered up a lot of stuff? I got one piece of paper, but I got a whole 3 notebooks full of stuff they did wrong. Okay. Barbara says, the California Attorney General defends CPS. I'm sending it to the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Health and Human Services Offices for Civil Rights. The DA's own investigator said that I have, quote, an excellent civil rights case against the county. Okay, here's Chris again. Chris says, they wouldn't even let me talk at court. They just dismissed the case just like that. They didn't even make my baby's mom take a drug test, and that's what they went to court for. Okay. Deanna W. What is Mr. Davis's new book out? I believe Cynthia can email an electric copy.
Who's Cynthia?
Deanna, Cynthia used to be a host on one of the shows like 4 or 5 years ago. But here's the good news. Miss G can email you a copy. Earlier in the show, I put on your social media platform Miss G's email address, gat@vincentwdavis.com. Deanna, email Miss G and she will email you a digital copy of my book, The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win.
And also, I can email you the CPS report as well.
Okay. Here is Candace. No, Cadence.
Cadence.
Cadence. I have a niece named Candace. That's why I keep saying Candace. Cadence. She says Dallas Willanega. I don't know what that means. Then we have, oh, here's Dallas Willanega. Hello. Hey, Dallas. How are you? Dallas
She's
is,
talking about Dallas, but okay.
I understand very well. Cadence. Figured you'd be interested in this conversation. Love these two. Oh, thank you very much, Cadence. We love you too. Michelle says, yeah, put all you can in the comments. Please, I'm researching this too. Okay.
I think she's referring to what I shared with them
Okay.
about CPS. That is.
All right. We have a few more minutes. I'm looking for a question that might be beneficial to everyone. Have you seen any questions?
Dallas wrote CPS doesn't have jurisdiction. I don't know if that's something you can comment on.
What did he say? I'm sorry.
He said that CPS doesn't have jurisdiction.
Well, Dallas, there are two types of jurisdiction in the law. There's something called personal jurisdiction, whether the state court system has jurisdiction over you to bring you into a court in that state. That's the first type of jurisdiction. The second type of jurisdiction is called subject matter jurisdiction. And the CPS laws, at least in California, and I presume in other states, give the social worker jurisdiction over any child in that state, in those state borders, if they believe the child has been abused or neglected, or risk of abuse or neglected. So if you are telling me that they don't have jurisdiction, generally that argument is a false argument. I know there are a lot of people that talk about federal common law, blah blah blah, and they insist that they're right, and they don't win the cases. Not many, but several years ago, Miss G, a guy from up north in California called me and he hired me and he wanted me to come up to his county and do his case.
Mhm.
And I said, fine, I'm more than happy to. But then the next day came and he emailed me a list of things that he wanted me to argue. Okay. And they had to do with federal common law, or what he believed was federal common law. And his arguments, if they were winners, were going to divest the court of jurisdiction. Right. I
Mhm.
told him that was law. He said, "Look, I found this on the internet. This guy was selling a course for $49.99, and I bought the course and I read it. And this guy, knows more than you, and blah blah blah." I said, "Well,
Mhm.
I'm not going to make those arguments. I'll return the money to you, and you can hire another attorney." And he said, "Okay, we'll do that."
Mhm.
Um, I didn't hear from the guy for about 2 or 3 months. He eventually texted me and called me and explained to me that, Mr. Davis, you were right. I put up those arguments that I bought on the internet for $49.99, and I got bounced out of court, laughed out of court, and I tried to appeal it, and I lost that too, or take a writ, and I lost that too. I said, well, I didn't want to throw it in his face. I said, but I mentioned this to you. and you decided to go down that strategy. I said, I've only been doing this 30 plus years. I kind of know something about it, and he says, well, I just believe that guy on the internet. And I said, okay, well, I can't do anything about that, right? That's your decision.
You know,
So,
I that kind of takes me a little bit to what happened today with somebody making a comment over a case in New York, making a comment that we're crooks because we asked for a retainer amount. And that really gets to me, because oftentimes people think, and then that she had the audacity to ask if we believe in God, if we have God in our hearts or what have you. And I'm like, first of all, Jesus didn't tell you to not pay your dues. Jesus didn't say go work for free. He didn't say go labor for free. He said labor for your, basically for your foods, labor, so you can make money, so you can feed yourself and your family and have a roof over your head. But you guys, some of you guys, not all, some of you guys are bringing Jesus into something like this. God didn't tell you to do any of that. So let's not use the Jesus excuse, because Jesus would not tell you to say things like that either. Okay?
okay,
Let's keep
here's our
that.
here's our last question of the evening. We've gone over our limit. But Michelle Porter says, "Yeah, aren't we entitled to a jury?" That's a very good question, Michelle. And if you live in California, the answer is no. You are not entitled to a jury trial. Some states, and I think Oklahoma may be one of
Oklahoma.
them, allow you the right to have a jury trial if you want one. Now, I've talked to a couple people from Oklahoma who always tell me, well, my court appointed attorney talked me out of having a jury trial. On a lot of these cases, I would love to be able to have a jury trial. And how do you change that, Miss G? You vote.
Yeah,
You,
but is it really wise to have a jury trial? Really?
in my opinion,
They're going to choose them. How do you know
no,
they're not going to choose
no,
social workers?
no, no,
The attorneys will choose the jury.
no, no. I went through training for a long time with a guy by the name of Jerry Spence, back in Wyoming, and he's considered one of the greatest trial lawyers of all time. And he convinced me that jury trials are probably the best in a lot of situations, not all, right? Maybe the best for you in these types of cases, in these CPS cases. And I, I would have to say that I wish they had jury trials here in California.
How
They
do we
don't.
make that happen, though? What kind of vote
The,
for what
the, the,
exactly?
the state legislature would have to pass a law to give you the right to have a jury trial.
The state. Okay, so okay.
The state legislature.
Mhm.
Now, that type of legislation may have been proposed once or twice in my 36 years as a lawyer. So it's not everything on the top of your head. Now, there's some arguments against jury trials. One of them is it's expensive for
How
the
much
state.
are we talking about?
I don't know. I don't know how much it costs for the county or the state to put on a jury trial, but it's
When I used
expensive.
to, but how is that? I didn't get paid for jury when I do it. I don't get paid for it. They don't pay me.
Yeah,
So
you
how
don't
is
have
it
anything to
expensive?
do with it. You don't have anything to do with the money.
So how is it expensive though? I mean, I missed work one time for 2 weeks because of a murder trial. So
Who do you
how?
think? Who do you think pays to organize all of those jurors, to send out the mailings to all of those jurors?
So
To
what?
print. Oh, that's very expensive. People call me all the time about class action, and I say, well, depending on the size of your class, it might cost you $300,000 to just do
Or
the
maybe
mailing.
they can get it from from the federal government.
Maybe they could, or the federal
Yeah,
government could
why
just
not? I
say,
mean, they're getting money from the federal government for stealing our children. Why not get money for that? I mean,
they,
that's a some lame excuse. That is a
but
lame excuse.
they may say, federal government may say, well, we're giving you a couple $1 billion as it is. You use some of that money, and that means
Bullshit.
somebody else in the pie will get a smaller slice.
It's so fucking stupid and twisted.
There's a book that I would highly suggest to you to read for everyone to read, and I'll type it. Okay? Go to Google or go to Amazon and type in this title, The Economic Analysis of the Law. There is so much in our legal system that's tied to money that it'll make your head spin. The law, I had in my first year of law school in my property class, the law about property is just the division of matchsticks, just the division of marbles, right? Like when you were a little kid, you played marbles. Well, that's all the law is about, distributing limited resources to different people. And what I believe is that economics plays a huge part even in these CPS cases. All right. Listen, we're at the end of our time tonight. Thank you, Miss G. Um, we will be on tomorrow and Sunday at 9 a.m. So I hope everyone tunes in at that time to take a look. Or, were we supposed to have a guest tomorrow, Miss G? Or are we going to be doing more questions and answers?
Well, I don't know. You guys want to have? I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know.
Well, we'll chat and then I'll let Grace know. But everyone, thank you again for watching. Miss G, thank you for co hosting tonight. And we'll see everyone tomorrow at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. Good night.